It's okay. There we are. It did it. It was circling and circling and circling, but it made it.
It made it. Yay!
We are live. Holy cow. And then with all these different screens, it's like, I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right one. Here we are. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Stand Out and Be Seen. And we even have a nifty little logo up here now.
Do. Very exciting.
How are you doing today, Anza?
You know what? I'm fantastic. I can't believe it's been a week since we've been together.
Well, it's been a week since we've been on the show. But I believe, based on your T-shirt, that we might have been involved in the same activity, although you got yours done before me, which is no surprise because you are a superstar rock star author. But yeah, we that's what we've been up to over the last week, and it's fun and exciting to get back together and have that under the belt. Although our topic is about our book from a couple of months ago, and that's right. So you've already completed at least 2 books. You didn't write a book earlier this year, did you? It was last year when you wrote a book, right?
It was last year. I wrote 2 books last year. Yeah.
Okay.
It was just
so 2 books last year, 2 books this year.
Summer.
You got a trend going. That's pretty cool.
I did. This was my 12th book.
Yeah, that's amazing too.
Isn't that crazy?
That is awesome. Not amazing like, oh, I can't believe it amazing. Just amazing as in, wow.
Wow. I know. For some reason, I was like, this is a dozen. It's like a dozen eggs or something. It felt like a real milestone.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm working on, well, I guess my 5th.
Yeah. See, you're going to catch me. I better get writing.
I think, or is that, no, it's my 4th. Come on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Because I've got my business book. I've got my Genie Effect. And then we've got the Ideal Client Map. And then there's the one I'm working on that you are ahead of me, but that's okay. We've got these tools that make the job a snap.
A snap. You go, girl.
What do they say? Great minds think alike.
Great minds think alike. It's true. It's true.
So let's see. So I guess there was one other screen because there was this starting out question. And perhaps I'll let you came up with the question, and it's the perfect question to ask me. So do you have that question there, number 8 in the list?
Number 8, I do. I have it all pulled up. You know, one of the things that we talked about, the purpose of this podcast was to talk all things marketing and branding and avatar building, and to share tips and tools that we use in our everyday life to help our listeners be able to do things more quickly, more efficiently, get better outcomes. And one of those things is what caused us to write our co-authored book together, the Ideal Client Map. And this is totally your genius behind the scenes for all things that we do together. And so today I thought it would be really great to share the Ideal Client Map and let you share what it is, what does it do, why is it so effective? And maybe we could, start by filling out an avatar and show people what we do and why it's different than what anybody else is doing out there to dial in an avatar profile.
An ideal client avatar. Well, maybe we won't like fill in the whole thing, but we can at least describe and show what's going on and why the visual aspect adds so much to the concept of an ideal client and an avatar, and then bridging to that for any of the copy and content.ai, anyone who's using the genies and wizards, the avatar wizard, the structure of that avatar wizard and the structure of my map, that they intertwine. So They're both their own thing, yet they can be worked together in synergy. For that old overused term that people used to try to avoid, but it's the bell bottoms of my terms right now. So bringing it back.
Bringing it back. I love it.
Yeah. Plus, last show, Anna Banks asked us, what is this map? What is the map? What are you talking about? So
right.
Hopefully, she'll be able to jump in and see at least maybe the replay, if nothing else, and we'll describe the map and what it is and how it works and why it's so powerful.
Yes, and why it's so powerful.
So let's travel on over. Bang. And of course, now it didn't keep my proper sizing, so I'm so giant over here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Awesome. Now, there it is. The map in most of its entirety, because there's other branch off things, other tools that link in with this, plugins, if you will. But here is the avatar. And again, copy and content members, you'll be able to associate pretty much every box here, minus these little two groups right here, because they are the key of what the colors and the shapes mean. This big blue box in the center here is a bunch of stuff coming out of your head for a brain dump. And this yellow, hey, let's do the fun thing. This yellow box right here is a bridge I built that is not in the form of the avatar, but helps link together the first portion and the second portion, or what I call the 2 tracks into the 3 tracks. And that's part of the visual, is the 2 tracks into the 3 tracks. And for you, Anza, at this point, looking at it in this format, what is there something that you could add, or is there something I missed before I start going off on the next rabbit hole?
No, I think that you gave a really good overview of what it does. I think the really important part of this, and the thing that was so helpful to me the first time that you showed me the map, was the 3 tracks, because it's really easy to go down bunny trails when you start putting together your avatar and you start thinking about things, but you don't keep that same logical thread that goes all the way through it. And this format really helps you keep your mind where it should be going to get to the finish line, so you do get this really clear picture of who this person is and the messaging that you want to create. Because at the end of the day, that's the whole purpose behind this map, is so you'll be able to better connect with your ideal client and your target audience. So yeah, I love it. Take us to the next step, my friend.
All righty. Well, there's a lot going on here, and I'm going to take us back to the beginning of the map, where it started and the focus of it. I was helping our friend Steven, and the track is the idea, the basis of the whole thing. So let me travel us over into this other screen, where now we switch sides. That was awesome.
Awesome.
Now we will zoom in and look at said track here. Hopefully I can get that in where people can see that behind us. So this is a basis of how we like to define an ideal client avatar thought track. And of course, this is, again, copy and content members will recognize immediate result, urgent problem, pain point, critical question, objection, limiting belief. Well, that's exactly what's in the avatar. You are correct, my friend. And that is why it's here, because I was helping Steven with the avatar and we were trying to write content, and he had things that were jumbled all over the place. And so when he plugged that information into the Genie, it came out jumbled for him. didn't like the way he would need to generate several things and curate it into the thing he wanted. And so I was trying to explain to him, you need to have all of these congruent on this track. So that way you're not writing about an immediate result and an urgent problem that is not related to that immediate result. And once I put it in here visually, then everything clicked, not only for him, but for me as I was building it. And so then I just started adding extra boxes. And here we have, I want and I can't, and they whine and complain, and then it raises this question, and then they cry about it. They cry more about it, and they say, it's not my fault because of some reason, some objection or limiting belief. And by saying all that, it said, oh, it's the thought track. It's how these things flow. Although they don't have to flow in that order. That's the cool thing about it, is that we can easily just say, oh, well, here's the question about this problem, but there's this limiting belief and it causes this pain. So it's not structured and it has to be from left to right, but it has to be congruent in the result has to be talking about the problem. The result has to solve the problem. So there it is up at the top. I have the solve the problem, and we need to relieve the pain and answer the critical question and overcome the objection or limiting belief. And there's, again, the flow. It's like, oh, okay. So therefore, if I have a bottom line end of the day result, I can make sure that ties all the way back through to the immediate result that the thought track is thinking about. Whew, I could go on and on and on and on. Right there, that was a fire hose. That was a fire, even for a copy and content member. And if you're saying, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yes, it makes sense. But really let that sink in, because it's really powerful in the input to the genies. It doesn't have to be genies. Input into any AI. If you want it to talk about a topic, it doesn't even have to be about marketing. Or about a pain point necessarily. If it's any story, it needs to be congruent.
Well, that's exactly right. And, one of the things that you and I talked about when we first started collaborating together is that one of my clients' pain points is they're writing content that isn't landing with their audience. They're not engaging, they're not converting. And this is a beautiful visual of why. Because oftentimes, and you and I have talked about this before, and I was guilty of this in my business early on, is trying to just create this avatar with all of these traits and all of these problems and all these things you could do, and you end up muddying down your message. And when you're very clear on what your client is trying to accomplish, what problem you're helping them solve, all of a sudden you're opening up a conversation. And that's what the map really does at the end of the day. If someone's saying, why do I need this? What difference is it going to make? It's going to make all the difference in the world for you, because you're going to gain clarity that you didn't have before you went through this process.
Yeah. Now, what I also like to point out is other people have looked at the map and they have come up with a variety of different things that suddenly it's like, oh, it helps people do these different things that I didn't even think of. So one person said it really helps her stay on track, stay focused in what she is doing, not just writing about the marketing or writing copy, but sales copy, not just content, but copy. And so then also, well, I need to create a lead magnet and an email response and a sales page. And so therefore, all of these things need to coincide with the emotional thoughts that the person you're trying to connect with is having. And it needs to be from their perspective, which is really difficult. And one more before you respond. It's really difficult, and by having the visual portion here, now you can see if something doesn't quite fit. Well, maybe it needs to come onto a different spot because it corresponds with that immediate result. And in this format, you can easily spot that.
Right. Right. You know, one of the things, well, there's two thoughts that came to mind. One is when I build an avatar inside of the avatar building Genie, I often have to print it out and look at the outcome. And then it's like, oh, I need to move this into this other field. And it's trial and error. And it might take me 4 or 5 times before I get it right. Whereas when I see it visually on the map, it's so much easier for me to keep my train of thought for that one track. The other thing that you hit on, which I think is really important, is it really guides you to put it in terms for your ideal avatar, because they're going to respond when you create content, whether it's marketing content or sales copy, that they're going to respond when you use the terms that they use. And I'm going to give you an example. One of my clients doesn't like the term work-life balance. She likes to call it work-life integration. Brilliant. I love work-life integration, but I don't know anybody out there who's using that term. So she's been writing about this concept of work-life integration, and it's not catching on. And so it's like, we have to use things in the terms that our potential clients are using, and then we can educate them into this brilliant idea and way of looking at things. But first we have to get their attention, and we do that by using their terms, and having that conversation with where they are, so we can help guide them to the result that they want to get. Do her clients want to have more work-life integration? Absolutely they do, but they need to understand how she's defining that for her to help them get from point A to point Z. And I think that this map is a beautiful way of narrowing that down and keep it in a logical format so you can walk them down that path.
Yep. And while you were talking, the map was churning in my head. It's like, oh, that's a limiting belief. People think that work-life balance is a certain thing, and she is trying to explain that it's something else. And so then it's like, oh, well, let's start here. If this is this limiting belief that we're working against, well, why do they have the limiting belief? Well, that's probably the problem then, you know? And since it's a problem and they have this belief and they want that thing. Okay, I fill in that part. And so now suddenly it starts to make sense of what is supposed to go where based on what they're thinking and the words that they're using. And like you said, they don't understand the term, or potentially they're not far enough along on the journey to understand that term.
Right.
That's the big one for me, that when I'm trying to look at this and say, well, what words am I using in my content? And sometimes things really, engage, and other times things fall on their face. And it's like, oh, I'm starting to see patterns now where those words, I'm using words that I'm finding, powerful, but that's because I have context and perspective further along in the journey. And so I have to back up and say, wait a second, what did I say before I knew those terms, before I understood those terms? Or how was I using those terms incorrectly before?
Right.
So there's an interesting level of awareness involved there. And the map helps map it out. It helps you stay on track. I'll just repeat those things over and over and over, because that's what it does. And that's the power of it for me, is being able to stay on that track. And also, not only that, but part of the problem of staying on track is it's a really great idea. It doesn't fit in here, but it's such a great idea. I don't want to let go of it. Well, it's got another track. Plop it on there. Or what's even, well, if you want the advanced mind map version, the great thing is you just come right in here and you just say, okay, well, let me just type in my thought and it'll float there so that maybe later I can use it for something else.
Right.
But that's an advance above and beyond what we're talking about today. But the point being is that the map is more than just, oh, it's the avatar. It's the information that I plug in.
Right.
These represent the boxes, but what goes in these boxes is not what goes into the avatar. So this is not a replacement for the avatar. This is an enhancement for the avatar.
Right.
I want to make that perfectly clear. I am not detracting from the avatar wizard or the avatar genie, detective genies, or any of that process at all. That is fantastic. What this does is adds another level for some people who are visual learners.
Right.
And even people who maybe aren't visual learners, but suddenly just having the representation of what's going on here.
Right.
You know, and then that other level of empathy, of perspective and context from the ideal client's perspective. You know, unless you are a well-versed, trained actor, putting yourself in someone else's shoes is usually pretty hard.
Right.
So this is that way of saying, okay, what words do they use? And what are they thinking? That's what the other portion of the map that we're not even talking about yet, that has that element to it, so that you can refer back. When you're in here, you can refer back to the emotional triggers and the focuses and long-term desires and all those things that drive this to make sure that this whole thing is on track.
Right.
So this keeps each thought on track, and then the map keeps each track on track.
Well, it does. And, you know, as an agency owner, most of my clients are not copyandcontent.ai members. And so they don't have all of the training that's behind all of the wizards and the genies and all of the methodology that creates great copy. And so for me to be able to give this visual map, it makes a lot of sense to my clients who have come to me with this big mess of a ball of this giant generic avatar that they've created. And, you know, we're having to unwind the yarn, and we're putting all of this information into those 3 different tracks, and maybe 4 different tracks if they've got a whole bunch there that they need to unwind. And so it just helps, I think, whenever you have a visual, whether visual learning is your primary way of learning, but for people especially who are not, I'm just going to say, experienced in the copy and content AI methodology, this breaks it down and makes it really simple. And even for those of us who are involved in copy and AI, copy and content AI, you know, I look at when you and I sat down to create our joint avatar, I thought it was going to be a really quick process, but it really took us on a turn that I wasn't expecting. We spent far longer than I thought that we would spend on it, yet the outcome that we got was so much clearer than what I had using the genies alone. And it was really because this forced us to look at it and really analyze things and move things around. And just that little bit of tweaking and that digging deeper into asking some really curious questions, the outcome was far superior to what I had created on my own through the excellent tools that we already have available to us. And it was because I could see it. I could walk through it step by step. And I could say, oh, wait, that's why that doesn't make sense. Let's move it over here or up here or down here. And we did that several times as we went through defining a joint avatar until it really made sense. But we were able to see immediately, like, oh, I've got that feeling in my stomach. Something's not quite right. That's not quite firing on all cylinders. And we were able to correct it much more quickly than I think through trial and error. which often is the way marketers figure things out, if it works or not. Let's throw stuff against the wall. Let's see if it sticks. If it does, yay. If it doesn't, oh, let's go back to the bulletin board and try it again. This fast tracks that whole process, which I think is the beauty of it and why I was so excited when you showed it to me the first time.
Well, that's awesome. I showed it to you in a somewhat more primitive form. It has evolved a lot since then. I mean, like this portion, which means was added on based on a user that came into the group and they just did it on their own thing and said, hey, here's how I did it. And I was just like, brilliant. Again, the map, it's like until you know where you are and where you're trying to go, that's what inspired it. She's like, I needed this to help me complete the thought track.
Right.
And I was like, you're right. I was automatically doing it. And it was harder. I was spending more bandwidth and more brain power doing it that way. And that was why the map started. So I was like, oh, let me just adopt that. Thank you. Give you credit for that. Sue Emily, thank you. You added in this portion of the map and it made it that much better. So now when I walk, now when I travel down the track on the train of thought, I can say, okay, what do they want? And what words are they using? They say, that's where it's important. They say they want, but they say they can't have it because there's a problem. And therefore they're crying and whining about it because the problem causes a pain. You know? And so therefore, because of all that information, there's some kind of question about it. Usually, how can I solve the problem? How can I ease the pain? Hence the little green blue boxes, minty green is your solution. And then they have a question. Then there's an objection though. It's like, it doesn't matter. Even if you answer the question for me, it still doesn't matter because there's this thing, you know, and whatever that thing is, that you just have to make sure that what you are offering in your words is debunking that. It's answering that. It's relieving that. It's solving that. It's giving them what they want. And you need to make sure, oh, it's in their term. It's what they want. Now, is what they want, what they think they want, is that, let me travel over there. Is that really, you know, all these things up here, long-term desires and focuses, and is that going to fulfill all of that? Yeah, you can't be that small. Now I'm like Jolly Green Giant.
Well, I want people to be able to see what's over there because there's a lot that happens on that side of the map that's important too.
That's true, but that's beyond the scope of this episode. However, if you stick around, we'll give you a copy of the map because we'll give you a copy of the book, The Ideal Client Map. I mean, you could go and buy it on Amazon. You could actually go and buy it on Amazon in book form or on Ingram Spark. That one's, let's see if the green screen's going to be funny. Oh, look, that's doing awesome. So there it is. You can see a little bit through it. A little bit. Yeah. But we're going to give you the PDF form. We'll give you the PDF form, and then the book has a bunch of resources on a website. And to get the PDF, you'll just go and register on the website so that you get all the resources, which includes an image of the map that you can print out and use as many times as you would like. So that is today's offer. We'll get to that. We've got a little bit left here. I don't know if I had much else. Let's double check that question there. What elements are essential for this map to be effective? Well, that was up on the screen too. This is very interactive. Tell you what, I'll just show you what's on my screen. Bam! There it is.
Bam!
So the key elements, let's go over the key elements of an ideal client, because the ideal client map, because what terms have I come up across? I've looked for other mind maps to help with, they call them empathy maps, and there's a bunch of different things, and it usually involves an image with a name, and a bunch of boxes with a bunch of information in each box. And still there's no flow of anything. It's like all this information is in this box and all this information is in this box. And that's the difference of my map, where each box represents a certain thing. There's some boxes that have more information in them, but that's because they have a job. They're not just placeholders. So let's back up a little bit so we can see the whole thing. Did you have something to add there?
Well, I did. And and this might be a little bit off track today, but I feel like it's still important to say. And I think this goes to the last box that you pointed out, that was, what's in it for me? What does that mean? This week, I have had a lot of people selling to me in my DMs, which, let me just go on record of saying, I hate that sales method. I don't know who's teaching it, but I wish they would. When someone pops in my DM, I know immediately that they're selling to me based on the first question that they're asking me. And I hate transactional sales. It is one of the biggest turnoffs I have. And if ever I sound like that to somebody, smack me upside the head, because that is the antithesis of everything that I want to be. But it made me think about the map today as I was having this conversation with this person. And before they even got to their sales pitch, I had to say, please don't sell to me. And they said, okay, I won't. I said, thank you. I appreciate that. Then they came back and they said, what was it that I did that turned you off? As a fellow marketer, I want to learn from this. And it was like, you never asked me about me. You never asked where I was at in this process. You just came in with this assumption. And the beauty of the map is that you've done your research. So you can now connect human to human and build a relationship and have genuine, authentic conversations with people. And then you can organically share how you can solve the problem that they have. And, I think that Sue was so brilliant when she said, why? What does this mean? If you know what that means to your client, they feel seen, heard, and understood. And that builds a connection. That builds trust. That builds loyalty. That means that they're open to hearing what you have to say. And then you can share with how you can come in. And you're not going in blind. You're not going in making this assumption that somebody has this problem or they need your service. In this case, it was because I was an author. They had this assumption that I didn't have any idea about how to market a book, or, all the things that you do after you've published your book. And it was like, you had no idea what my pain point was or my problem. You just came in giving the solution. And this whole process eliminates all of that. And see so much of it out there in the marketplace. And it is not serving anyone well. And if you really want to build a strong brand, this is your starting point right here. This is right out the gate what you need to nail down in order to have a brand that doesn't repel people, that, is based on transactional sales. You want to build a brand that's authentic and genuine, where your people feel seen, heard, understood, cared for. And this map is what sets you up for success.
Well, while you were talking and describing that, the map unfolded a bit further.
What? How could that even be?
Basically, let me get my finger in the right spot. So what you were saying, if I can do it here, this is what they want.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they need.
Right.
And it's an interesting distinction to say that, because, what people need usually requires something they don't want, which is effort, time, work, whatever, those things that we're
Mhm.
trying not to say.
Right.
And therefore, that's what the map is helping us do. It's mapping that out here. Say these things so that you can offer these things in a context that relieves these things, that gives them again what they
Mhm.
want.
Right.
You know, but this is what they want. This is why they want it. You know,
Mhm.
in the immediate sense of this thought track. And therefore,
Right.
that leads right into the rest of what I was going to be describing from there, except from the other side, which is beautiful. So we'll just start from that side. In the map, you need to know what it is that they want, you know, for each of their thought. Now we have 3 here. Let me point that out really quickly because of the avatar in copying content, which has 3. That's why this one was built with 3. We can add in as many as we want. The point is, if we're going to talk about a topic,
Mhm.
regardless if we're handwriting it ourselves or using AI to generate something or curating or whatever we're doing, if we keep a thought track
Mhm.
aligned between what they want in their terms and you know and why they want it and what they want, and then why they want the whole thing. So I'll get to that. We've already said here's a thought track.
Mhm.
This is just what is in their head of why they're saying these things. We got three thought tracks. The only thing that I have added in here is the enemy. Sometimes we can point the finger at somebody. If we can, it's great to put that in there and say the software platform, the all-in-one platforms are overwhelming.
Mhm.
Okay, all-in-one platforms are an enemy. My ability to use an all-in-one platform is limited. No. You're not the enemy. if you're saying that it's your abilities or it's your ideal client, they don't have the ability to do this. That's not the right enemy. You don't want to have to beat themselves. That's all I'm going to say there. Sometimes it's a great thing. Sometimes it's a little wonky. Coming over to the main thing though is the bridge. So this is just a way to say these 3 things in their head. I want this and this and this. I wish I could just have this, and this. That's that emotional. That's why there's these spiky things. This is really emotional. Kind of like what, you know, why they want. Ooh, my finger's disappearing. Why they want things. I'll get better at that as we go. It'll be fun. And then what we have in here is more emotional stuff. Their long-term desires, what they have to focus on to get the long-term desires. And then ultimately, who they want to become, which I love this part because I always had a problem with, well, who do they want to become? And again, it's how do they perceive that? And then how do we measure that? How do we say, you made it? You're there now. That's what these are for. When we accomplish these things, then we know that we've become that. So it's like, okay, so we got to focus on this, go through the journey, get all of these things so that we can fulfill these and become that. Because right now I have all of this head trash going on. There's the brain dump of all these things they're thinking. And therefore, this is what I think of myself. That's that journey. I am here right now on the far left in the little orange cloud, and I'm feeling obstructed by all these thoughts, but I want to be this person. So how do I get there? Well, here's the map. And there's more to it. There's you know, some smaller boxes in there that I didn't even point out and describe, because those are those things like I just said over here. It's like something unfolded, something revealed itself.
Right. Well, and I would like to just say this, that this was fire hosing this morning. This is a lot of information to take in. And there's going to be a lot of people who say, man, I can't do that all by myself. I'm not a marketing person. I just want to get my word out there and I just want to connect with people. That's just what I want to do. I would like just to give a little PSA that we have a group coaching program that Monty and I run together. It's called BAM. It's all about marketing, audience, and branding. I said that backwards because I'm dyslexic. And we're going to be starting 2 new groups in January. So if it's something that you're like, man, I need that. I need to create better content. I need better sales copy. I need to connect and engage. I need to increase my sales. I need to connect more organically with potential clients. This group would be for you. And I would love if you would leave a message in the comments and we can follow up with you and share a little bit more about what that program's about. But I felt like with everything that we talked about today, I don't want to leave people feeling like, oh, I can't do this by myself. The great news is you don't have to figure it out by yourself. We can help you. We spend 4 weeks on this process in the BAM program, and it takes every bit of 4 weeks to go through and do it well. So,
And
there's
interestingly enough, that you just described one phase of a 3-phase program is the
right.
ideal client map. It's about audience. That's the
Mhm.
A of the BAM program. And so to lead into that, that's a little bit further down the road. But we're going to give away the book about the map, which kind of has this whole portion. And then
Right.
what you can think about is, well, brand is all about me and what I want to and how I want to portray myself. And message is the marketing, and that's how you're going to talk to the people from your standpoint. So it all ties together, but it starts in the middle, kind of, but it starts with you, really. So that's why it was great for you to point out the BAM program, because it's like, if you're totally mucked up and you don't have any idea where you're supposed to be going, you've got all these different tools and you don't have them linked together. And I'm describing myself, by the way. I'm not like just saying, if you're like this type of a person that I've heard about. It's like, no, if you were like me, where you knew what the parts were, but it's really painful to get them all together, and people tell you to use this one and use this one and use this one, and here we are saying use this one, but I have a method to using this one. It's not just here, use this one. It's like, hey, here's one I use, and here's how I use it, and here's how other people use it. And then, like you said, here, if you really want some help, we can join up, and then we can help you use it, rather than just telling you and showing you how other people use it, and it can be used. That's what the BAM program does is we'll just show you how you use it for you in your way. It's a lot of use.
Right. Because it's all about you, right? When we're dealing with a customer,
in the
it's
process,
all
you think about,
you.
no, it's all about your customer. It's all about the client. It's like,
yeah, the you. Yeah.
Well, but and not
and
but and
right. No but here.
That's what we discovered, why we put brand first, is because it is about you.
It's
about
knowing
them.
you. Yes.
When you're in that stage of the journey, it's about you and how you want to be seen by them. Then you move onwards, because it's not always about you, but you need to know who you are. Then you move on, you define them, and then it is about, then you're talking to them.
Right.
And no longer talking to them. Now I'm talking to you. Hey, are you feeling overwhelmed in your marketing process? I was. I spent months developing this program. I spent months working with other people in this program, developing out further based on the results that we were getting, which were good. So it's great to say I've evolved the map, not because, oh, this doesn't work, let me find a different way. It was, wow, this works really great, and actually it's only one level, it's expanding into something more. So that's the exciting part. And that's so exciting that, that train of thought actually derailed. But that's okay. That's what the map is for. When that sort of thing happens, you can say, okay, now what were we doing? What was our goal? Oh, yeah, that's right. Our goal was to give away the book and get you into the resource area so you can actually have a copy of the map for yourself, and then start looking at it. And then you have the book, so you can at least skim read through it and see if there's some ideas there that you hadn't thought of, because they were for me, especially in the branding section, because that's Anza's Auditorium. I wanted the A word. Anne says auditorium. the avatar is my auditorium. But so that was really enlightening for me to read that portion of the book because we had discussed it, and it was one of those things. I knew about the parts, but until I mapped them out, which, by the way, I think I've told you, Anza, that I've mapped out the branding section in a mind map. So the program is expanding.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. I love it.
So let's just go ahead and zip on over to, if I can find the right one, this one here. Let's see if it saved our spots, and we'll be really cool and interactive. Bazamba!
Bam!
There we go. There's the new book. Just like I was saying. Look, it's actually the same. Well, actually, that one's the reversed coloration of the book. But we did two different covers because that was really, really visually impactful. Because if I line that one up right, it's like, oh, no matter how you put them, since that one's green on the bottom, if it was the other way around. Right. Anyway, that was fun. Go.mapyouridealclient.com. Get a free copy, a PDF copy of our book. And then, like I said, there's other resources. We have spreadsheets and mind maps and
workbooks,
links to other stuff, and some of the other tools that we use to make our life unwhelmed in that marketing process for all those different pieces that are going on. So there you have it.
So many pieces.
I think that we covered it. Any last words?
Well, it just makes me so excited every time we dig into the map, because it just gives me other ideas on ways that we could use it and other ways that I can help clients get the result that they're looking for. And with any tool that you use, I think it's a great filter for, what's in it for me to be able to add more value, but what's in it for them, my client, on how I can track their success, right? How can I cut out some of the pain points, some of the time, some of the energy, some of the banging the head on the wall? And this mind map is just so brilliant in so many ways. And when you said that you created a mind map for the whole branding process, it's like, oh, of course you did. And why wouldn't we? And so I just can't wait to have that conversation with you and share that with our listeners too.
Indeed. That is definitely on the burner, so to speak.
On the burner.
Well, great. Thanks for joining in. And again, go.mapyouridealclient.com. Get a copy of the book. It's a PDF form, but there it is. Read it.
There it is. Ask us questions.
There you go. That's really the basis of all this stuff. I'm talking about how the map's expanding, and that's because of engagement. So it only gets better the more people that get involved. So please get involved and give me some feedback, and maybe your perspective will add more to it too. That would be awesome.
Awesome.
All righty. Well, until next time.
All right.
We'll have to switch sides or something.